Let's put on record that Jeff supposed to bring pizza.
Here we go.
Thank you, dude. It was almost, I think your malfeasance
Just
of your,
guaranteed it'll
your
never happen.
malfeasance of your duty, sir.
Rod, it's good to see you too. Haven't seen you in a while.
It's beautiful.
We got mints in there for you? I wasn't here last time.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this evening. We do have a joint meeting with City Council this evening, which thank you, Council, for being here. We do have an established quorum this evening for Planning and Zoning, so we will go ahead and move straight to the approval of minutes. Commission? July 21st, 2026.
Yes, that one, sir.
Okay, perfect. I have an approval for one. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Recognizing persons not on the agenda this evening? Go ahead and state your name and your address for me for the record.
Can you?
Yes, please.
My name is Sylvia Nixon. No, hold on. My name is Sylvia Nixon. I live at 350 South 10th East. And I would just like to make a statement.
Sorry. Get that off there. Sorry, my apologies.
I'm awake now.
You need to turn yours off and then those ones on for your computer.
Yeah, mine is off and those are off.
Oh, those will be on. So you
Try it again.
Hello? Oh, I got echo. Nice. I can speak loud. I have a big mouth. Deaf?
Here we go.
Ready?
Go for it, Sylvia. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Sylvia Nixon.
Excuse me, just a minute.
Yeah, just turn it off. I can speak.
Mike's.
Yeah, the presenter mics, when I turn them on, they echo.
Okay, try again.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Oh, hi.
Mine's off.
Go ahead,
Maybe it's
Sylvia.
this one.
I would like to thank you for your time. I would just like to come here to give my thoughts on the data center here. I know that we are not eminently putting one in, but you are looking at it possibly in the future. This is something I feel we should not have here. There's one being built in Cuna and the probability of another one being built on the other side of that city. These centers use millions of gallons of water a day. Our city council just recently tried to regulate how we would water our yard, yet these centers use millions of gallons a day. Some as high as 5 million, depending on the size. Will they have to pay the same amount that we do for water? We already know that when construction techs take water from hydrants, they do not pay what we do, according to some billing invoices that have been issued. They also generally have to have their own power plants of some sort because the grid cannot accommodate their pull that they have on the electric power. What kind of facility will they build? Will they be pulling off our wind, solar, and water power? I just wonder how much our utilities will change because of this possibility. When built, a 1 million square foot one, like the one in Cuna, would only employ 100 people. How many would even be local? I would much rather have the casino approved. At least it would employ many more than the center and not have quite the impact. These centers also have been known to give off a low frequency 24-hour hum, though some are even louder than that. We have a desert full of animals and people living on the outskirts, and I am wondering how this will affect them. We need to stop destroying everything in the name of technology. We need to protect jobs from being taken over because of AI technology. We do not have enough water to have this kind of facility, considering all of the new construction alone, and there is much going on out there. This is just the tip of the iceberg we get regarding all that is going wrong with the data center for Elmore County. I have read through some of the many pages of this week's packet. It seems like there are plenty of things that must be done before this can actually be a serious conversation. Hopefully, we never have that serious conversation. Many communities around the country are up in arms and fighting against these centers coming to their communities. On August 3rd, Governor Abbott of Texas put a temporary moratorium on data centers amid many operational questions and strong pushback from the state residents. When the time comes and you are seriously considering this, perhaps something as controversial as this needs to be put to a vote of the people who live, work, and play in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Anybody else not recognized on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none. Commission, is there any conflict of interest or ex parte contact declarations? No? Okay. We do not have a public hearing this evening, so we are going to move straight down to our new business. And that first item is going to be the preliminary plat extension request by Blue Yonder West Trilogy Development on behalf of Endurance Holdings. Brenda?
Yes, so what we do have is the preliminary plat extension request for Blue Yonder West. They have met the requirements of the code to submit their request prior to the expiration date of the preliminary plat. And so their request is to extend that for another year.
Commission, any questions, comments?
I asked the reason why they want the extension.
In this particular instance, it is still under development review for the development plan review.
Okay, and then also it said like a lot of unseen circumstances arose, and I'd like just what were those unseen circumstances?
Blue Yonder West, it has a sewer lift station. And so that is something that is under review under those development plans. They have a separate set of development plans for that sewer lift station.
Is that the only reason, or?
If they did not list it specifically within here, that's the reason so that I am aware of. So before a final plat can be approved, the infrastructure has to be in and or bonded. And neither of that has happened. As I mentioned, the development plans are still under review for the infrastructure for water, sewer, streets, the sewer lift station.
I was just curious because in the one paragraph, they say, despite these efforts, the project has experienced several unseen delays in obtaining necessary approvals and completing the required review. So I would just like to kind of know what those unseen. So is it just the one or is it several, I guess?
I don't believe the applicant, is the applicant, somebody here to speak on behalf of the applicant? Oh, very good. If you could come on up.
Please, come on up.
So mostly unforeseen, just plan approval delays. And so I believe we are currently in the process of finishing. So after that is done, we can move west and station as well. We've had some delays in Blue Yonder, so that one tail end of that. Should be able to start this one pending by smaller winter.
Anything else?
No.
Question? No? Okay. Thank you. There's no more discussion. I entertain a motion.
Commissioner, motion to approve PZ 2634 preliminary plat extension request for Blue Yonder West.
First by Rob. Second by Billy. Rob, start with you.
Aye.
Billy. Aye. Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Green.
Aye.
Aye for me as well. Motion does pass. Now we'll go and move into our joint meeting this evening with City Council. City Council, please join us. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you how you want to do your
I'll open it up real quick.
establish a quorum.
Yeah.
All right. Call the meeting to order. I guess I'll take roll. Councilman Sanders,
Present.
Councilman McCarthy,
Present.
Councilwoman Workla, Councilman Harjo.
Present.
Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum.
Wonderful.
Really quick, sorry, Chairman. I'm going to suspend the Robert's Rules orders, let the council discuss and discuss, and fire any questions and have an open discussion.
You beat me to it.
Oh, for us, you can do.
No, we're gonna just do the same. We're looking for, let's spend Robert's Rules quarters. So with that being said, we are here to discuss data centers, what that looks like, what that means, what do we want as a city, figuring out code, figuring out things that we need to make sure that we are ready for in our city. I do believe, Councilman Harjo, you were the one that kind of came to us with the preliminary of, let's get this conversation started. So can I start with you?
Indeed. So council, I attended a P and Z meeting a couple of months back now, with the concept that our code and our land use chart have no specific mention of data centers. Our code doesn't really define what consumptive use of water is. And so as kind of looking at a holistic view of what the city of Mountain Home's future could be, this was all really sparked by 2026 House Bill, I think it was 895, but it ended up being Idaho Code 42252. And there's a segment of that that really defines limitations of consumptive use regarding data centers for water statewide. And there's one particular portion of this that sparked particular interest in relation to us as Mountain Home. As a city, data centers, as that term is defined in section 633622 VV in Idaho Code, that began construction or on or before July 1st, 2026, may not use water for cooling purposes as a consumptive use unless the water is supplied by a municipal water district or a water and sewer district water system. And the water and the municipal system part of that is what really pertains to us as the city. Attending some of the county commission meetings prior to that, the county commission had made mention several times that a number of data center representatives have made contact with Elmore County commissioners or their land use staff. I'm unaware of anything particular in terms of applications and process, but clearly if somebody's knocking on the door, I'd like for us as a community to be prepared for that thing. If we don't have it enumerated in code, perhaps it's time to define that in code and how we'd like to handle those.
So I'll jump in really quick. I think it is my time as mayor, we've had maybe one or two reach out, and every time we've said, are you water consumption? Yep, no. Wastewater? Yep, no. So we've told them all no. Just because one of the water consumption and then the discharge of the wastewater being highly mineralized, and we just don't, we can't take it in our system. And so we've always told them no, and that's our, we did say, Chris, our kind of our caveat of, so, and then we had a discussion with a modular center 2 weeks ago, and I said, water? Nope. Power? Well, we have our own power. Wastewater? Nope. So there are micro data centers that we had a discussion with, and Dale could probably, it was they're Conex buildings, weren't they, or something? It was weird. They're all refrigerate. They, so it's like no discharge. You have to bring your own power, and you have to, and no water. But other than that, we've had none, maybe one or two in my term, but we've always told them no. Just for relevance, so you guys know where we're at. I think we've always told them if they're like no.
Right. I think it's important that having this conversation together, we are able to, solidify what we feel is going to be best for the city. Hearing that you guys are saying no is already awesome. But what does that look like? So we have Connex boxes come in, and then I believe Jeff even shared CenturyLink is considered a data center, and they have something that's just right down the road from us. So like, what is the verbiage that we want to look at? So for our code to ensure that we're not going in places that we're going to regret here. And I believe, and this is just me personally saying, AI and data centers were a big push, but people didn't really understand what the repercussions of that are until now, and now it's gonna be a big kind of like back push. The problem is you got all these big companies with big money that are gonna come in, and they're trying to change laws and change ways within each state so that they can have their way of doing it. But as a city, I think it's important that we set down the ground, the guidance and the ground rules for what that looks like here. So.
In Councilman Harjo, Idaho code, now they've changed it, like, if you're in an aquifer declining region, that's a definite no now.
If they attempt to obtain their own water rights. The earlier in that same bill that became law on the 1st of July, it does talk about the data centers can't acquire their own water right for consumptive use for cooling or otherwise. So again, that pushes the reliance back on the municipal systems, the sewer and water districts, the irrigation districts, so on, which kind of narrows the scope if there was interest in our region, we're probably going to be a target.
I figured a couple things out since Councilman Harjo first appeared at the P&Z regarding these paired statutes. One is the definition of a data center under 3622 VB, and then 42, the one on water restrictions, makes reference to that definition. So it's important to understand the context in which these two statutes operate. The first one was enacted in 2020 to provide tax exemptions for data centers to incentivize them. And it was done with a view toward, I believe, the one in CUNA. So this was custom built for tax consequences. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the effects of them. And so it's just, what are the things you need to do to qualify for this tax exemption or tax incentive with the state tax commission? The second part is then this one denying them access to original water rights for consumptive uses in data centers references that definition. So just, I thought this thing, when I first saw it, was just shockingly wide open. Agreed. And so that's why my alarm bells went off. And like I was telling you at the last P&Z meeting, you want to be careful. If you have one that's too broad, you're going to capture things you don't want to if you're going to restrict it. So that's all. So these are only useful in the context of restricting it to water use and knowing that these are the ones that qualify for tax exemptions. In the universe of, do we want noise? Do we want to talk about sizes? This definition isn't as useful as the ones we have for everything else, drive-through windows, this sort of thing. So
CenturyLink's, sorry to jump on here. So CenturyLink's little center over here is considered a data center?
Well, if you read this definition.
So would then our fiber huts be considered data centers?
Yeah. All it has to do to meet this is it has to have an uninterruptible power supply, generator power or both, sophisticated fire suppression and prevention systems, and enhanced physical security and restricted access. It's stunning.
It's around it, not what it's doing.
Yeah. It's just what it contains, and it's like, well, your server room back here is a data center,
right?
And that was that key part of when honing in on the definition of either creating a tiered system of, acceptance at the smaller level for more logical things and smaller commercial use versus essentially large scale industrial data center, because those definitions are going to be pretty distinctly different.
So my guidance to these folks is your realm here is keeping tabs on conflicts of use. And so you're going to decide what things are below a cutoff where you don't mind them because they're around us and have been for 50 or 60 years, or you're going to have these great big ones. And that's where I suggested that you guys have this meeting, so they're not creating definitions in the blind and you're all on the same page about what things you want to say no. And Brenda here has done a tremendous job of putting together packets. But the main thing that I saw that I think you're going to find useful is this one where in a proposed land use chart, you hit the nail on the head right here. It's nowhere, and it all is going to hinge on the definition. Maybe there's a footnote, data center, this many square feet to this many, or whatever. but it's gonna hinge on the definition, but where it's blank except for I-2, and it's a C, then you're driving the train, which you're kind of doing now, but this just kind of formalized it. And the other trick I want to tell the governing body, which I've explained to these folks at the last meeting, is if you have an unintentionally broad definition, you cabin in what Brenda and I can tell people without having to come to you for an amendment. So you might accidentally have something that's good. It's like, sorry, it's prohibited. So these blank spots can be problematic that way. So you're either going to want to rezone property or change this. So, all right, I'll shut up now.
Well, I think you just answered the one question that's bugging me. I was gonna ask Brenda, if we had a data center applied today, how would they be zoned? What properties, what would they carry? What category would they carry in zone?
Well, let's just take a look at our little code.
So I think the closest thing might be light manufacturing, but I don't even know that we could classify it as light manufacturing.
Right, and that was one of the key factors. Just a proposal to the chart to add that line, whether it's one or several, at a tiered rate, because we have nothing that's applicable directly.
So you have a provision for utilities, and the phone company is a utility. It's not the same kind as an electric company or a gas company or a cable company, but it's similar. So you might be able to shoehorn it in there, but these, caged in areas like we have in the south of town with the transformers and stuff, that's a utility function.
Yeah,
I'm so
and is there,
bad
is
with
there,
it.
is there a difference or distinction between public utilities and just utility in the general sense? Because I know within our land, because within our land use chart, I know we say, I think it's public utility.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's a distinction that just classifies a single utility. So if an individual utility company just wants to come in and start providing a utility, are they a public utility?
The CenturyLink building, by the way, is a public utility because it's centrally assessed. So if you go look up the value of that building, it's zero, it's listed as zero because the state does the tax assessment on it. So it is a public utility. Utility. We went through this with some,
Yeah.
So
anyway, I'll keep looking while you guys. Public utility transmission facility, public utility yard structures or service, C 9922. Public utility transmission facility permitted in all zones. And 9922 says. Any land use for a power plant or utility transmission facility requires a CUP with review by staff, commission, city council. Sure, intrusion of non-compatible land uses will not be injurious to adjacent. I think you could come close to shoehorning it in there. You got something close. Probably not close enough, which is why we're doing this. Maybe that's, but
Yeah, and so then we come back to what it says within the code that says if a use is not listed within the chart, it is expressly prohibited. And so then does that cover that caveat within the code? Does it cover the data center being expressly prohibited?
so one of the beauties of your land use chart is that there are uses there that you don't have to get a permit, they're just permitted. And so if it's a commercial use in a commercial facility or an industrial use, building a building and putting electronics in it, I don't think in and of itself triggers a definition. It's a commercial activity. Right? I don't. The uses that are going to trigger scrutiny, like a conditional use permit, or need to be permitted or prohibited, are those that are going to be impactful on the neighbors directly through noise, so forth. So making a good definition for this is something that we need to do. Because yeah, it could be the case that one that's too big is going to be outright prohibited, and we're in no danger of telling them go somewhere else. You're not allowed here.
So Jeff, I just want to clarify. So I know there's been some talk about putting like tiered type uses. So you have your hyper facilities or even down to your micro facilities. Those don't need to necessarily be within the definition, but should be within the ordinance as we're discussing sizes and conditions to a data center.
Well, like we're doing with the storage amendment. So you're gonna make sub definitions. You're gonna have data center, a thing, a big building with wires and humming. And then you're gonna have data center large, data center medium, data center tiny. So data center large, okay, everybody freak out, only goes in the I2 zone. Data center tiny, P everywhere. See what I mean?
Okay.
That's, I think, same kind of deal. You have one broader definition, and then you have little sub definitions, and then the things that meet that definition then become, through the rest of the code, permitted or conditional. And then the conditions, again, thinking in the lens of what am I doing to fulfill the overall goal of the local land use planning act, protect the health, safety and welfare of the community, ensure that there aren't conflicting uses, and so forth. That's the lens through which you are looking at it. So way apart from the tax implications, but simply how much noise does it make? The grid part, I don't think we do that scrutiny in any other thing, even those things that do require a lot of electricity, because that's between them and the power company. We are gonna have something to say about the water they use for sure, and the discharge of, so that can be part of your conditional use permitting in the different sizes. But, you know, non-consumptive water, like I think we talked about at that last, if you're not consumptive, okay, it just spins around in there and you go buy some more antifreeze and put in it, then that's not something that we deal with. Anyway,
As long as there's no discharge of those.
right, yeah. They haul it off.
So Jeff, what I've heard you just say is that we need to focus on a definition that the words that would matter would be noise, size, water, and discharge. Those are the four main topics that we need to make sure we are incorporating in those.
I think Brenda had a better list than that. That's probably more encompassing, but along those lines, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we need to take in the nature of the work? Electronics, data centers. How we progressed over the last 20 years in terms of what our computers can do. Micron's subtitle is "Where the Kings Shrink." A building that might be no bigger than this room, we classify as small. 5 years from now, the electronics grow up that the work it's putting out, the amount of energy it's using would have reached something much higher. Our original definition, so that we need to consider the nature of the business that's coming in.
So
Otherwise, we'd have a little place like CenturyLink pulling as much as the new planning fuel in 10 years because the technology will advance it that far.
So within the packet, and then I listed out all the different definitions within the country. One of those talks about those, whereas the technology could change and how you would put the verbiage into the definition. The way I read it, so where we would put something like or substantially similar. So in the definition that I provided, it could encompass or substantially similar information technology infrastructure, so that it does allow for some room for the changing of technology.
Brenda, it looks like in your research here that you did a lot of research. That there's some language that you do support and some that you don't. Is it the LaSalle County, Illinois? Is that the one that you're strongly recommending?
I'm not recommending any of them, Councilwoman. What I've done is I've looked at all of those and considered what AI had told me and what strengths they had. And I compared that to the definition on page 3 to see if it fit the strength of what AI said the strength points were. And like I said, I compared it to this, and it appears that this definition meets a lot of those standards.
So who wrote recommended and not recommended? Is that you, Jeff? Because it says in here,
Where
after each city and
Yes.
state, this is what I recommended, this is what I don't recommend, so.
That was an AI, it's chat.
Oh, chat.
Mhm.
From a data center.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I know. I asked it to be unbiased, but I don't know that it totally was.
And then on the fiber one, guys, I just want you guys all to know that we would never take that infrastructure into the city's municipal fiber optic network. We don't have not until we do some co-locates with like a CenturyLink or a Silver Star or a Iron. We could never take that many terabytes or what is it like? It was like 400 gigs just for. So they'd have to do their own stuff. And then we talked about the wastewater. Yeah, we would be doing that either. So, yeah, I like where you guys are going, the definitions, the micro, the large. Hey, and then I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we all dialed in on this one because we don't want to get sued, because that's one where you don't our ICRIM don't pay for water and land.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick. Let's say a data center comes and talks with you guys. They're all like, look, we'll bring in our own water, but we need like discharge. What if we paid for a new one for the city?
Paid for like a wastewater treatment facility that could take their discharge?
Mhm. Okay.
Then that's a possibility.
So that's the reason I'm that devil's advocate. I'm like, okay, I got money.
Yeah, and it would be and I would assume it would be the same for water as well. If they came to the city and said, hey, I've got a bucket of water rights for you guys, and it will, supply the needs of this and more, is that potential?
Isn't that what Meta did? The city of Cuna?
I can tell you their power supply, solar field they're putting in, right next to where I work at Black Creek Public, it is in the square miles size. Sure. Just to try to offset the power from that.
So back to Mr. Mayor's concern about like litigation, if we're in the driver's seat when it comes to infrastructure. There's no litigation involved in that. Like, we either have it or we don't. They say they're going to bring it, that's fine. But if we have a zoning code right now that has nothing and it's this mega thing, then we're in a good position to say no. If we adopt a reasonable definition and some reasonable guidelines for it that are based on the principles in the first chapter of the Local Land Use Planning Act and your comp plan, then we're golden. We're not gonna, or we'll prevent, I don't know how they would sue. But back to the essence of it, if they bring water and wastewater treatment, they have all their own electricity, you're back to the other issue that Councilman Sanders brought up, which is what about the data itself? That's not something we really regulate, but I think it's important to recognize that this thing only has a 200 or 500 gig, whatever, solid state hard drive. We don't have spinning rust anymore. But now, both our firm and I think the city is largely going to using cloud-based services to store data. When I have to supply body cam footage to defense counsel in discovery for a criminal case, that's done through the cloud. The police department loads it to the cloud. I send that cloud thing back to the defense attorney. We review the body cam video. These things all reside in data centers. Now, rather than have my own version of Microsoft Office here, I'm using my Microsoft Office account, Microsoft 360. So just know that there's a need for these. And that need's increasing as people shift from having the program on, we're not using DOS anymore, which I think Councilman Sanders would probably recognize. Or Lotus 1-2-3. And so these things, they're being built because there's a need. And the existence of a data center itself for the purpose of processing data isn't something that I think comes under the purview of the Local Land Use Planning Act. There may be people that oppose Facebook and the use of data, and maybe it's being used for nefarious purposes like the infamous cameras. But I think we can separate that out and just understand that these things are being built to fulfill a need. So that we're all using. So
Question, and actually Brendan and Jeff, from just, yes, we don't have anything to do with the electric service. That's obviously Idaho Power. I'm just curious, has there been any conversation with Idaho Power to see if there's any even capacity here that would,
interest a large data center?
I'm not quite sure how to answer the question. We have not had conversations with Idaho Power regarding data centers specifically. But we do know that in the industrial area, when manufacturers come to develop, we know that there's limited amount of capacity for those. And so they're either building, or providing additional infrastructure to power those. So I would assume it would still apply.
Right now, Idaho Power is building two fairly large scale gas power plants, the expansion up on Industrial Road here in town and one out on Simcoe. So
Yeah.
this is again part of the infrastructure that is required to build those things.
Right.
Obviously Simcoe is outside of our scope here, but regionally,
Yeah.
they are building.
Yeah, you do have that transmission corridor, which could potentially feed.
The reason why I ask is I think we come back to earlier the conversation when it comes to Idaho code, when water consumption, that I think it's important to note that there might be some natural barriers, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that can help the city while we work on this. I think it's important that the public knows that it's not like we're going to get a large metadata center tomorrow and they're going to come in, and I just think that that's important to be showing that it's not something that can happen tomorrow. So we have some time, which we're doing, working through this, but again, I think there's some natural barriers that is going to, I'll say, event. Right.
Yes.
Not solid rocks, water. So
Water.
yeah, it's not happening tomorrow. Probably, day after tomorrow, maybe next Thursday.
Always quick with a quick joke, right?
Yeah.
So,
Just kind of thinking what the mayor said, with Connex going on 84, coming back to exit 99, you see that one little area out there they build up, they got a Connex. Would that be considered a data center?
It could be one of those micro centers. That could be a Connex box, and they could be air cooled. May not require a bunch of electricity,
So
but
if we separate that from, say, that you just being air cooled is not using a drain on the utilities. What's our stance on that? Would we allow that depending on the zoning then?
yeah, I think as like Jeff pointed out earlier, we would have that land use chart, and we would capture data centers as a whole in a definition, and then the land use chart, we would list them micro center, permitted, or conditional, whatever that looks like for the tier types or the types of uses we determine should be allowed or within the community, and if they should be conditioned or not.
In conjunction with data centers, it occurs to me now, seeing some reference to storage, power storage. That's something that's being done more and more to store electricity in batteries, gigantic battery banks. And so, while we have the hood up, so to speak, these are large, these lithium battery banks are the size of buildings. I've toured some at Hanford site a couple summers ago. So you might want to anticipate those, and those do create a potential conflict in terms of a fire hazard or something like that.
So fire hazard right here, they say lithium ion battery thermal runaways. And so after you look at Public Works comments and concerns, fire, see what else we got in here. But it's quite significant. So
not all data centers, when they build them, are going to have these giant battery packs. Some of them are just going to be plugged into the regular grid or windmill or solar. But some people are going to come in and not build a data center, but just build a big old battery bank. Maybe it's Idaho Power, maybe it's somebody with a solar farm. They need to store that electricity because some nights it gets really dark and you can't use the you can't generate electricity. So they have to have a way to issue the electricity out when it's not being generated.
Generators, electrical supplies, large building footprints, restrict and secure areas that could delay firefighting access. This is just where I stand. If you guys know me at all, I'm pretty just straightforward and blunt. I want whatever language that can be procured that says absolutely no. Like, I don't know how you guys feel, but I do not want it small, medium, or big on anything. So whatever we need to put here legally, so we can get away with, not get away, but so we can get that going and pass through. That's where I stand.
So here's the problem with that stance. It doesn't take into account those things that are actually innocuous that don't cause trouble. And it can preclude us from the economic benefit and the need that we have in the city of getting the benefit from those activities. And the example that I keep using, and CenturyLink is going to yell at me for this, but that building over there that we've been walking by for the past 60 years, or not me, for 36 years, it meets the definition of a data center. If CenturyLink needs to build a new one of those, and we need it to, then this absolute prohibition isn't going to work.
Well, that's why you, the brainchild behind this has to figure out what wording we need to get
That's why I need clarity from you, because this absolute no is going to imperil us.
No, I understand. And you made that clear at the very beginning. That's
Okay.
why I looked at you and I said, however, you need to be a wordsmith.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yep, I can do that.
So we actually will have a data center in Blue Yonder West. Number 4, just FYI. City
That will
Hall.
be our fiber hub.
So we have to, like I said, make sure the definition, is it
Title 10,
the, utility, is it
allow
a,
that as.
right? City facility. I guess my thought process is if they have no water use, it's great. No discharge, great. If they use Idaho Power, or what was the other one? Periodic Energy, a different power company, great. So it's not a hit onto the grid for Idaho Power. Then all of us ratepayers that are on Idaho Power, I think that's where I'll complain, like our Idaho Power just keeps going up and up and up. Is it because of data centers? Is it because of whatever? But I think we all kind of get a little testy, because I just had a $600 power bill this last month and kind of hurt, I guess. But if they came in and said, hey, I'm going to give you guys a new sewer treatment plant if you let us go out past the bypass road, or over by the airport or whatnot, had their own power, their own, like, obviously no water. I don't know, because the impact fees alone was, what was that? It was substantial. 500,000.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't bring it with me, but it was substantial.
The building permit fee, like, those are ones you don't waive. And then you say, oh, you're gonna build me the water sewer treatment plant? Perfect. That's $75 to $150 million. And then it allows the city to diversify its portfolio and the income. We can bring in a different industry, where right now we can't bring them in because our waste facilities won't take it. But those are things we all have to think about.
Jeff, on that kind of same note with the impact fees, if something came in so large and it was demonstrated it would have such a huge impact, those conversations are going to come in about the wastewater treatment plant or things like that.
And it comes under the definition of an extraordinary impact, a thing that you didn't anticipate, and you get to write your own impact fee for that.
So again, this is kind of the point of, we have some natural barriers that are going to set kind of a box, if you will. This isn't something that can just explode tomorrow and we, 1 million square building is going to be coming.
No.
But there's also the other edge of the sword. Company A comes in and says, we love Mountain Home, we want to be here, we'll build you a new, all the way through phase 2 waste treatment plant. We're not going to discharge anything, we'll do it out of the goodness of our hearts because we want to be good neighbors. They just expanded our capacity, so the next group that comes in that does need to discharge, we can no longer say we don't have the capacity for them.
Touche.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring the small one in first, who gives you a nice carrot, so the big one can come in behind and say, you can no longer drive us out for that reason. You have the capacity. We know. We don't put the last one in.
This is where writing a defensible definition and articulating the effects that you want to mitigate make it legally defensible to say no, or only over there, or no, not at all. So yeah.
And to be able to be malleable enough to set our own conditions at the point in which it hits the various states of the.
But again, and you have to be careful that they're driven by the actual deleterious potential effects on the neighboring community, but not just this generalized sentiment of I hate them. That's what will get you sued.
And eventually, if this is gonna be something, because the legislature's already demonstrated they're willing to provide statute for someone to allow them to advance this type of technology, this type of commercialism. You don't wind up getting the state involved and we get into a supremacy issue where they write a statute over the top of us that let these guys come in anyway.
Yeah, Jeff. And
Yeah.
kind of going back and forth. You know, you think about it, even cell phone towers with the buildings, that could be considered micro. One over by the gas station, Hiller, they got a little HUD or whatever metal building, that could be considered micro data center then.
That's what the data center said.
But that, it isn't under your, well, your current code doesn't have a definition of it, but I would think that would be one you wouldn't want to fall into that definition.
Right, so then that's like you do prohibition on everything and say that just for spitballing, they want to put a data center out there by the sewer plant and, or not, it's data center, but cell phone tower. It's going to yield $2,000 a month. Not using any water or anything, but just wants the land for that tower. We just precluded, you know, passive income.
Perfect case in point, well 16 up by the, that's what we do with that one. I forgot about that one. Oh,
I mean, it seemed like this is a definition that can go, things we're blind to, and not even thinking of yet. Especially what, Chairman or Councilman Sanders says, because we don't know what technology looks like 2 weeks from now, regardless of 10 years from now.
But we can always measure how much energy it draws. We can always measure what kind of thermal impact it's having in the area. We can always measure by the amount of lithium ion batteries they may carry on board. Especially when we're looking at what's the capacity of our fire resources to respond to that, should there be an issue there. What capacity going to be if there's an electrical fire that cuts loose out there?
And even then, the chemistry of the batteries matters. A lithium ion battery is significantly different than a
An iPad.
lithium iron phosphate battery. And it's
So that's one
volatility.
way to measure it. The other, of course, we talk about RF transmission. If the facility is putting out RF, which most of these will, is it going to be affecting the area around it? Is it shielded or not?
I think I'm spitballing, I'm guessing that that they're shielded. Because if they're not, you can listen to you can pick the data up that's inside. So I'm gonna guess they're shielded.
But a
should be
small
part of their
company, when
security.
this gets started, is willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
Because they're going to grow.
But still would have Corona, which is a electric common utility. How do you get that? And when I think of battery pack, I'm saying I'm a freaking jackpot traveler, but you go down Jackpot, you see that huge solar field and they got batteries everywhere down there. That's what I'm thinking of. So can that be considered a data center as well? They gotta have some kind of schematics or got the controllers that regulates power coming out of that. It's a utility, but does it fall in data center as well? Because they gotta control the outflow and inflow of power.
Most of them are going to have a larger with their own generator backup systems. And one thing they can't do is lose power. So their standby power is going to be long enough. It won't be more than they need to have enough time to successfully draw it down and transfer that data load to another center, or get the generators kicked in, power line stable, and bleed the line in. So most of these guys, they're going to be big center. They're not going to rely on just big batteries, generators, setups for their universal power supplies.
Yeah, I'm more thinking of just like the big batteries coming off of like solar field. I'm just thinking in my mind, like you go Jackpot, you've been down that way, you see all the batteries from that solar field, and say someone will go out to the farm again and want to do something like that. Would that fall under the purview of data center? Because
It wouldn't be storing or transmitting data.
But I think uh, Commissioner Roder is hitting on something that we need to do based on what I mentioned earlier, and that is we need another definition of like electricity storage facility. It's a whole separate category. It's not data as much as it has the potential to cause problems like fires. So a great big battery or a, believe it or not, they have flywheels that store electricity. They're dangerous because they get loose, they'll run everybody over. Anyway, I think this commission should adopt data center definitions that I think everyone here, it appears to me, is kind of on the same page about, that there won't be any surprise when it gets to you and maybe, but we need a power storage definition and a power storage that can be included, data center with power storage or data center, they both definitions are encompassed. We have a definition of a data center and its requirements and sizes. Then you have electrical power storage facility. Data center containing electrical power, now you get the bonus of you have to meet
certain
two
studies or
requirements.
whatever.
Oh, I'm just gonna build a power storage facility over here to soak up all the electricity out of the solar plant. Okay, great. That's its own set of requirements. Fire,
And how
Okay.
much of that is covered under the fire code?
right. I think we're gonna want. Yeah,
I mean, kind of like what the
Okay.
mayor's saying, that big solar field they're building out there, they could just put a data center right there. They're using power for AC or whatever, for cooling or pump or whatever. I don't know the technical background of it. Then they have batteries for overnight to keep it going. So
Yeah. Many data centers do utilize solar power for that reason. They want to put the grid on the regular power grid, so they will hook up into solar and have some type of green energy to power it. And
we just had a meeting with a different company that charges less per kilowatt hour. And they're their own power company that are, I won't say company, I'd say, what would you call them? Company, I guess? Yeah, wanting to come into Idaho. So we'll see what happens there. They have like every one of our fiber huts has its battery backups and it's got its own generator. That would do the same, have its battery backups and its own generator as well, that power company. It'd be on natural gas first, then battery, and then generator. It was crazy. It was weird.
Can I suggest that we consider possibly having a definition that we can begin working with based off of what Brenda has given us? And the one from Chesterfield County, Virginia, it's on page 5 of the packet, can get us a good starting point that we can build off of. This is what it says. It says data center means a facility used primarily for the storage, management, processing, and transmission of digital data, which houses computer and or network equipment, systems, servers, appliances, and other associated components related to digital data operations. A facility may also include air handlers, power generators, water cooling, and storage facilities, utility substations, and other associated utility infrastructure to support the operations.
so if I could direct your attention to page 3. So that is kind of the definition that I've landed on, that encompasses, I would say, all of these definitions of these other municipalities and counties. So if we could start by looking at that definition, compare it to these other municipalities. Of course, it's kind of a lengthy definition. I don't know if we want a wordy definition or what the definition length looks like, but that was my goal, to encompass all of that within this one definition. Of course, I had help with AI, of course. But I think it covers so it covers what a data center does. It covers the types of data centers there are and potential data centers. It covers how it's designed, and then it covers what it's not. And I think those were all important aspects of our definition and what that looks like. So I don't know if we want to look at that now, read it together, compare it. You guys want to go home, think about it, and go, we like this, but let's cross out this. Or meet again. This was fun.
Jeff got to bring pizza next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brenda, Brenda,
I'm
you-
gonna
you're talking
commit
about
to
this,
that.
right?
This,
Page 3, yes.
So much cooler.
Back in my
I think-
Rico.
I think from a legal perspective, what is important here, the rest of these details I can fine tune or flag hazards to them, but the main thing I wanted to make sure we had happen was that we weren't going forward at the P and Z Commission with some sort of definition that was gonna run afoul of your expectations. So everybody's thinking the same way. When we do get a draft of this definition and one for energy storage facilities, I think we really need to do.
Mhm.
We're gonna add that to this is,
But if we go with that definition, then you essentially eliminate everything.
well, that's where if we go with this definition and then we parse it and make different sizes and we scale them in the zoning chart. So data center big is only an I2, data center medium.
But what would consider big, small, indifferent, because it's always changing, right? Like, you know, where the computer was this big and now it's this big. So like, I have a hard time with size on that, just because of the difference in technologies and how things change drastically, you know, over a couple year time. So to me, like, to go with a size, it potentially is going to limit you down the road.
I think that goes back to then usage. And the focus that becomes on
Well,
usage
it's-
rather than.
Yeah, but I don't think we can dictate usage, because the usage isn't in our control. Like, we cannot say you can only use 1 megawatt or whatever of power, because the power is not in our control.
Will that be under our standards, Jeff, as
So-
we move forward with the ordinance?
It could be, but I think your point's well taken, and I think what we need to do. The point about size is the impact it has on neighboring uses. So that's what I'm thinking about in terms of scaling the size. So a great big one is going to take up more land, is gonna have more infrastructure, it's gonna take up more water potentially, whereas smaller ones can come out of the extra scrutiny because they don't have that impact. And so if you use your scaling factor and it's measured by the potential impact the thing has on neighbors, then you're conforming to the Local Land Use Planning Act, you're protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the community, and you're not erroneously depriving us of the economic benefit of having one of these, or accidentally prohibiting those, like Commissioner Roeder was talking about, a thing that accidentally falls in the definition. It's just a set of computers at the bottom of a cell tower.
Jeff,
Yeah.
just because it falls within the definition doesn't necessarily mean that it is prohibited. So a definition doesn't necessarily determine whether or not it can be or can't be, right?
Right, it has to be paired with its so that's one of the things that I do when I review definitions or review city codes, is make sure regulatory language is absent from the definition is what is it?
Hmm.
And so we have a broad definition of data center, and then you have the mini definitions, medium, large, or small. I get what you're saying, that they're gonna get smaller, but if they're gonna get smaller, perhaps the impact is less. So it's, again, the need to regulate it diminishes as its potential for impact on the community diminishes.
But I don't see size as being a direct impact, right? Because let's just say, okay, at one time, I know this is off, but a nuclear power plant, right, was huge. Now they're talking about a micro
Yep.
nuclear, and would you want one, you know,
Yep.
across your alley or whatever right now? And then, because it doesn't fit it fits the definition of being a micro or whatever now, well, then 5 years down the road, you're like, what have we done here?
Yeah,
That would then go back to the land use chart of whether or not it's permissible or conditional or not.
right. So that's where your power comes in to take the different, not just the sizes, but the different impacts.
But what would those impacts be?
Well, noise, light.
What if it's quiet, you know?
Then
I mean,
Mhm.
that's the whole deal, right? Like
If
if
that's
you,
met the condition.
years ago, I had a guy say, we got people doing stuff in their buildings we don't even know about. And I said, well, then why do we care? If we don't know,
well, that's what I'm saying though, right? Is I'm not saying data centers are good, bad.
right,
I use a data center every single day, you know, with my work and everything. So I don't want to just exclude everything, saying that it's horrible and bad if, especially if there's benefit to us. And that's what I'm a little nervous of what I hear is we're just going down the path that it's bad and it's not good. And I just don't want to go 5 years down the road and say, you know, Marcus, he was a real idiot because he this is what he was part of coming up with. You know what I'm
absolutely.
If I may, I think that's what we're discussing when it comes to the conditions of it. So the definition is the definition. The definition does not.
No, I
define it, but
understand
the
that.
conditions in which it then applies to, like, for example, I look at our R1 through R4. There are conditions that must be met in order for each one of those to be developed. So when we talk about developing a data center, we're talking about what are the conditions in a land use chart that where it would fall. I mean, we can put a condition that it doesn't matter if it's a micro, doesn't matter if it's a 1,000,000 square foot, it belongs in I2 and only in I2, and you can't put it anywhere else. So you still have it,
Sure.
but you're now conditioning it based off of the land use chart.
So one point, I think you can't escape the fact that no matter what size a nuclear power plant is, whether it's a great big one or a micro one, it's got a big ball of nasty plutonium in the middle of it. But I don't think that same thing accrues in a data center. It's got a bunch of computers and electrons whizzing around, but it's got a bunch of noisy fans and it gets hot and it uses a lot of electricity.
Right now it does, but
Right, but later it won't. But it doesn't have anything that a nuclear power plant has something that's inherently toxic and dangerous in it. New data centers don't, except
well, I
by
wouldn't
virtue
say
of their
that.
scale.
I mean, if a data center catches fire and everything, then it's putting up toxic fumes and different things as well.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
So we regulate tire storage the same way. The Idaho code regulates tire storage. And so you can have a limited number of tires. They have to be 50 feet from a property line because when those catch fire, you can't put them out. And they produce a great deal of toxic smoke and all sorts of stuff. But there's nothing inherently dangerous about a tire. My cars generally have around 4 on each
we hope,
most of the
right?
time. Yeah. So but it's the way you put them together in a pile that creates a fire hazard. And so similarly, what people are recognizing with data centers is you can have circumstances where they either just outright consume more water than we have available, or they contain batteries that can catch on fire, or they create a whole bunch of noise. And so those are the kind of things we're trying to capture in a definition. If you've got a thing that's going to do any of that stuff, then we want to know about it. And then we want to know how much of a risk there is. And then we want to relegate the really risky ones to either not have them at all or put them far away. And then these other ones that don't, they're as innocuous as the CenturyLink building and we don't really care. That's the kind of definition or grade of definitions we're looking at you guys drafting or me drafting, you guys approving and ultimately putting into a code.
So Jeff,
So-
we'll have the one, this is where I thought we was going. So we would have the all-encompassing data center, what it is, what it does, what's not a data center. But then we would also have further definitions of what is a micro data center, what is a hyperscale data center within the code as well. So we would have additional definitions besides this all-encompassing what it
Yeah,
does,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's the way I kind of see it.
Okay.
Which can be even further defined by, as Commissioner Green has in this email about water use consumption, your wastewater discharge.
Yeah.
Fire protection,
Yeah.
noise.
Yep,
If obviously someone doesn't want 200 decibel generate, I'm throwing out a number there, going on in a residential neighborhood kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think those are kind of the things that we
Yep.
can
Yeah,
regulate
yeah.
with them.
I think the big thing is that we're not concentrating on size so much. It's just, we have to have a terminology some sort, right? And so micro is already out there, small is already out there, medium, large, hyper, whatever it's called. That needs to be encompassed in our definition. Not necessarily it's the size of it, right? Because all of them have like between 10,000 and 1,000 square feet. That's a pretty big difference, right? But we need to concentrate on impact, water usage, EMF, not RF. RF is really low. We need to update our terminology now because it's EMF, it's ELF, right? Extreme low frequency, right? So all those things, like how far away they need to be, will be in our land use chart, but that starts with our definition, not necessarily size, but we have to come up with some term to call it, right?
Sure.
And so if we have better terms that we can come up with our definitions, we'll work on those. But for right now, let's use what's already in the industry so everybody else knows what we're talking about. That's my point. So
I've tried to include as much of that information in this packet as possible, so you know what a micro facility was, how much power it used, how much water it used, are they air cooled or whatever. So as we go through our definitions of what a micro data center is, that will be included in, I'm assuming, in within that definition.
Then we could tie it together with the power and storage. So if a smaller data center fit within a certain zone, but it had a bigger power storage, that might push it into a different zone.
That, or it could push it over into a conditional use permit rather than being outright permitted. So
A lot of the stuff you're talking about sounds eerily familiar. What we see the airbase do all the time. Talking about the environment, you're talking about having an environmental impact study done.
Yeah.
Because everything you're talking about is how does it affect the people around you, the land around you? What's going to happen if it goes south? Where's the sources going to be coming from? What resources are needed to ensure that we can handle it if it goes south? It's very similar.
But it's tailored to our extension, your constituency. Health, safety, and wellness. But yes.
Wouldn't call it that. That's the last group in government we don't want involved is the feds.
And so there are a lot of technical studies that we can tie to the sizes of these data centers. And so maybe the super small one doesn't need, all 50 technical data or technical studies, but it needs, 10 of those, or at least information to provided so that we know the impacts that it does have on our community. So I mean, that's a lot to get into because I'm assuming data centers are going to have its own ordinance section within the code. So, there'll be a lot of discussions moving forward.
So with that, how do you want to move forward with this?
My suggestion from a legal standpoint is, I don't know how you guys are at writing your own definition, or maybe Brenda and I can take what Brenda's got here and I can spitball one. We can hash it out some night at a P&Z meeting, see if it meets everybody's needs. Then you guys kind of know what's coming. There won't be any surprise with it. Then when it's ready for prime time, if we need some tweaking, maybe we throw it to these guys at a meeting or have another joint one. But at a minimum, when we have a public hearing on adopting it, ultimately, I would like that to be a joint meeting, so that we have one public hearing and then the thing's done. And then any tweaks, because then the public can come in and make comments, even Sylvia. They're good comments, I thought. I'll even allow it.
Well, in that case, Jeff, I would vote that you take what Brenda has done, because we've all seen it. She's taken amazing research, put something together, tweak it.
Okay.
And then bring it back to P&Z.
I am for that too, because, well, that just pushes the work onto Jeff, so.
But I think we all agree, no data centers to take water, discharge, right? So easy to put in your code.
There was one thing that I included in some of that initial documentation was the decommissioning.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that has been a factor in multiple locations throughout the country where
I didn't think of that.
they were abandoned and the municipalities were in charge thereof after they vacated or the company folded or what have you, to decommission that site, much like our location up on Industrial that got wiped off the face of the planet recently. The city was left holding the bag with decommissioning.
And I think that's one step further. Not only decommissioning, but restoration.
Agreed.
And bond if
Yes.
a center winds up being.
So I think some of that
and they just
language,
disappear. And there, we need some kind of guarantee that we're not left holding the bag to do the cleanup, which could be, again, environmentally substantial.
Superfund cleanup site.
On the left. I would. I'm glad you brought that up because these micronuclear could end up the same way that data centers are. And we might want to get ahead of that. Not saying we need to add that definition, but know that one of my pro-nuclear stances was modified with exactly what you're talking about. The decommissioning of the main Yankee plant cost that state and the federal government billions of dollars. And I think the reactor's here now in Idaho. The decommissioned reactor. So
I'll say there has been conversation with nuclear, they're the size of a cement truck. So it has been talks. What was it? The governor's thinking about building them. So it's food for thought. That's a good. I forgot about
Well,
those.
then also don't let what I say deter you guys from going. Like if you guys want to go for a smaller size or what volume or whatever you want, present it. I get voted against a lot of the times anyway. So it's again, so don't let my comments deter you. I'm trying to say deter you from, if you guys want to, put in certain, exceptions or whatever, however you want to, put it, go for it. Just know that when it comes to me, you know pretty much where I stand. But the rest of council might vote me out and accept those, track, yeah, the amendments or whatever you do to it. So, yeah. Having influence.
Okay. Council, you want him to throw a stab at it and get it to everybody?
no water and waste
I think
management.
Brenda should be included in that though.
She's got her own chair. in my office.
As long as I don't, that's surety and safeguard.
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
Yep.
Okay,
What we're looking at here.
Okay.
in that case, are we ready to move on? We good to move forward then?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
done.
Will the council adjourn from this point?
Right. What time is it? Time to adjourn.
7:43.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Sanders, I stole your line and I converted it to Stevie Nicks' phrase, hauntingly familiar.
Familiar.
Did you catch that?
Here.
Yes.
Jeff, we're not done yet.
No, we get to stay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Actually, with that, we're going to continue to walk down our agenda real fast. Department head items, any questions, commission? Hearing none. Any conversation about the DIFAC for the monthly impact fee report?
No, you don't have to approve it. It's just there for your informational purposes and your reading pleasure to make sure that things are moving as they should be. I did want to point out that you should see that the EMS fees are being collected. And so that's going well. There's been a few hiccups, but moving forward. So, and I do hope to have the joint commission meet at our next meeting. We're supposed to meet bi-monthly, and so we have not yet done so. So I'm waiting to hear back from there. So I hope that they will be at our next meeting. Okay. And then I just thought I'd also point out that this point last year, we had issued 226 EDUs. But so far this year at the same point, we're 141. So currently we're under. We do have several multifamily developments moving forward. So Blue Yonder is moving forward with their multifamily. And that's 140 dwelling units, I believe, in total. So yeah. So that could pick up. That number could change drastically soon. Okay. So
Awesome. Commission, anything else? We are adjourned.
I think it was from Edge of 17. Hauntingly familiar.
Brenda,
came
thank you
from.
for all of that.
No, you
Yes.
did
Yeah.
great. I
Oh,
appreciate